The massive council chamber on Nexus Prime Station buzzed with the voices of 847 different alien species. Translator machines worked overtime to convert clicks, whistles, and telepathic thoughts into words everyone could understand. The air smelled like a mix of different atmospheres. Some sweet, some bitter, some that would kill most beings if they breathed too much. Ambassador HFY stood near the observation deck, his crystal body catching the light from 3 different suns. As a Veltari, he had seen many things in his 200 years of life. He had watched wars start and end, seen species rise to greatness and fall to nothing. But today, something small caught his attention. The human delegate, Dr. Sarah Chen, sat quietly at her assigned spot. She wore a simple blue uniform and held a data tablet in her hands. She looked normal enough. 2 arms, 2 legs, 1 head, like several other species in the room. Nothing special about humans, really. They were new to the galaxy, only joining the council 50 years ago. But HFY noticed how other delegates acted around her. When Dr. Chen shifted slightly in her chair, the Corvan delegate 3 seats away stopped talking mid-sentence. When she cleared her throat softly, a group of Sithrak traders suddenly became very interested in their own paperwork. Most telling of all, when she set down her coffee cup with just a tiny bit more force than usual, the entire hegemony of ZIL delegation found urgent business elsewhere in the station. This behavior puzzled a young Corvan diplomat named Thixal. His green skin rippled with confusion as he watched the older delegates react to the humans' smallest movements. "I do not understand," Thixal said to HFY in the common trade language. "Why does everyone act so strange around the human? She has done nothing threatening. She has not even spoken today." HFY turned his crystal head toward the young alien. Light danced through his transparent features as he considered how to explain. "You are new to galactic politics, young one. There are many things you have not yet learned." "But she is just sitting there," Thixal insisted. "Humans are a small species. They have no natural weapons, no poison, no telepathic powers. Their technology is good but not the best. Their military is tiny compared to the great empires. So, why does everyone treat her like she might explode?" The crystal being made a sound like wind chimes laughing. "Ah. You think danger only comes from claws and fangs and big ships with guns. But you are wrong, child. The most dangerous beings in the galaxy are often the quietest ones." Tixal's skin changed to a darker green, showing his disagreement. "That makes no sense. Humans have been here for 50 years. Before that, no one had even heard of them. How could such a young species earn this kind of whatever this is?" "Respect," HFY said simply, mixed with a healthy amount of fear. "Fear? Of what?" HFY moved closer to the young diplomat, his crystal form making soft ringing sounds with each step. "Tell me, young Thixal, have you ever heard of the rule?" "What rule?" "The rule that every species learns when they first meet humans. The rule that has kept peace in this galaxy for 30 years. The rule that smart beings never, ever break." Tixal waited, his skin now showing patches of curious yellow mixed with the green. "When a human says they are getting annoyed," HFY whispered, "you stop what you are doing and you run. No questions. No arguments. No exceptions." The young Corvan stared at him. "That is the most ridiculous thing I have ever heard. You are telling me that beings who command star fleets and rule over billions are afraid of one human getting annoyed?" "Not afraid," the Crystal Ambassador corrected. "Cautious. Very, very cautious." "But why?" HFY looked around the chamber. Most of the older delegates were keeping a careful distance from Dr. Chen, even though she was just reading reports on her tablet. "Let me ask you something. What do you know about human history?" They had wars on their home planet. They built spaceships. They explored their local area, and then met the Altarian Collective 52 years ago. Standard first contact story. Standard, yes. But you are missing the important parts. HFY's voice became more serious. Do you know what humans do when they get frustrated? Tixal shrugged with all four of his shoulders. Get angry? Fight? Same as everyone else? No. That does not sound dangerous. You would think so. But human problem solving is different. When most species get angry, they roar, they fight, they break things. Humans get quiet. They think, they plan, and then they fix whatever is bothering them in the most complete way possible. Tixal looked confused. Fixing problems is bad? When humans fix a problem, it stays fixed, forever. Along with any other problems they find while working on the first one. HFY paused. And they always find other problems. I still do not understand why this makes everyone so careful around Dr. Chen. HFY sighed, a sound like air moving through crystal caves. 3 times in galactic history, someone has ignored the rule. 3 times, someone has pushed a human past the point where they say they are getting annoyed. Would you like to know what happened? Nothing too terrible, I assume. Or humans would rule the galaxy by now. Exactly the opposite. Humans could rule the galaxy. They choose not to. That choice is what makes them truly terrifying. Down in the main chamber, Dr. Chen stood up to address the council about trade regulations for agricultural worlds. Her voice was calm and professional. She smiled politely as she spoke. Several older delegates shifted nervously in their seats anyway. She looks harmless, Tixal said. So does a black hole until you get too close to the event horizon. HFY replied. Come. Let me show you the historical records. Maybe then you will understand why the rule exists. Is this really necessary? Young one, knowledge is the only thing standing between you and making a mistake that could end your entire civilization. Yes, it is necessary. As they walked toward the station's data archives, Tixal glanced back at Dr. Chen. She had finished her presentation and was sitting down again, organizing her papers with calm efficiency. Nothing threatening about her at all. Behind them, the chamber slowly returned to normal volume as delegates felt safe to resume their conversations. The human was sitting quietly again. For now, the rule remained unbroken, but Tixal had no idea how close some species had come to testing it over the years. He was about to learn why that would have been the last mistake they ever made. The data archive chamber hummed with energy as holographic displays came to life around HFY and Tixal. The crystal ambassador moved his hands through the air, calling up files that had been sealed for decades. Most species preferred to forget these particular moments in galactic history. Computer, display classified files. Human interaction incidents. Authorization HFY 97 Alpha. Authorization confirmed. The computer replied in a neutral voice. Warning. These files contain sensitive historical data. Viewer discretion is advised. 3 large displays appeared in front of them, each showing a different star system. Tixal noticed that all the dates were from the early years after humans joined the galactic community. First lesson, HFY said, pointing to the leftmost display. The Siege of Kepler Station. Year 2157. The Scarthul Empire was at the height of its power then. They controlled 47 star systems and had the 3rd largest fleet in the galaxy. The hologram showed a massive space station orbiting a red dwarf star. Ships moved around it like tiny insects, mining asteroids and processing ore. It looked peaceful enough. Humans had built this mining station to gather rare metals for their growing fleet. Nothing special. Just hard work and basic technology. But the Scarthul decided they wanted tribute, half of everything the station produced, just for the right to exist in what they claimed was their space. Did the humans have legal rights to be there? Tixal asked. Completely legal. The system was unclaimed, properly surveyed, and registered with the Galactic Council. But the Scarthul did not care about law. They cared about power. The hologram shifted, showing a massive Scarthul battle fleet surrounding the small mining station. Hundreds of ships, from small fighters to enormous battlecruisers that could level planets. Fleet Admiral Thokvar himself led the siege. He sent a message to the station. Surrender half of all production, or be destroyed. The humans asked for time to consider. How long did they get? 3 days. During those 3 days, the human station chief, a man named Marcus Webb, tried everything peaceful he could think of. He offered to pay reasonable docking fees. He suggested a trade agreement. He even offered to share some mining technology. The display showed message logs scrolling past. Request after request, proposal after proposal, all rejected by the Scarthul fleet. Admiral Thokvar enjoyed playing with his prey. He wanted the humans to beg, to show fear. Thixal watched as a small communication came from the mining station. A human face appeared on screen. Middle-aged, beard, wearing a simple work uniform. Marcus Webb looked tired, but calm. The station chief sent one last message. HFY continued. He said exactly this. Admiral Thokvar, I have tried to find a peaceful solution. I have offered fair terms. You have rejected every reasonable proposal. Now I am getting annoyed. And then what happened? Computer showed tactical display of the next 6 hours. The hologram changed to show both the station and the fleet in detail. For the first hour, nothing seemed to happen. Then, small changes began to appear on the station. Webb was a mining engineer, not a soldier. But humans have this strange talent for making tools do things they were never designed to do. Over the next 6 hours, he turned a simple mining station into something no one had ever seen before. Thixal watched in amazement as the displays showed the station's transformation. Mining lasers that were meant to cut asteroids rotated toward the fleet. Gravity generators that moved ore around the station began working together in complex patterns. The ore processing equipment started producing something that definitely was not refined metal. What is he doing? Problem solving. The problem was a hostile fleet. Webb solved it. The tactical display accelerated. The Scarthul fleet, confident in their overwhelming numbers, moved closer to attack. That was their mistake. The mining lasers fired first, but not at the ships. They targeted specific points in the asteroid field around the station, cutting massive rocks into precise shapes. The gravity generators caught these shaped asteroids and began accelerating them at incredible speeds. Kinetic bombardment using mining equipment, HFY explained. Each rock became a missile moving at nearly 10% of light speed, but that was only the beginning. The ore processors had been busy creating something new. A fine metallic powder that the station began releasing in carefully calculated clouds around the fleet. What is the powder? Iron particles, suspended in an electromagnetic field, when the Scarthul ships tried to use their energy weapons. The display showed the moment when the enemy fleet opened fire. As soon as their energy beams hit the iron clouds, massive electrical discharges erupted between the ships. The fleet's own weapons became a web of destruction, overloading their shields and disabling their systems. In 6 hours, one annoyed human with mining equipment disabled the entire third fleet of the Scarthul Empire. Not destroyed, disabled. Webb specifically avoided killing anyone. Thixal stared at the display. Hundreds of ships floating dead in space, their crews alive but helpless. The Scarthul Empire had the third largest fleet in the galaxy. After Admiral Thokvar had to send a distress call asking for rescue, the other Scarthul fleets decided their empire was too embarrassed to continue existing. They joined the Republic of Free Systems within a year. All because one human got annoyed? This was just the first incident. Computer, display the diplomatic crisis at Vega Prime, year 2162. The second hologram showed a beautiful blue and green world with gleaming cities and orbital stations. Trade ships from dozens of species moved in steady streams between the planet and space. Vega Prime was the trade center for the entire hegemony of Zil. Trillions of credits changed hands there every day. The humans had established a small colony on one of the outer continents. Farmers, mostly, growing food to trade with other species. The display zoomed in to show human settlements scattered across fertile valleys, simple buildings, agricultural equipment, and vast fields of crops under an alien sun. The hegemony decided that human agricultural skills were too valuable to allow the humans to leave. They passed a law declaring all humans in their territory to be essential workers who could never depart. Slavery, in other words, but with legal paperwork. Did the humans protest? Oh yes. They sent their best diplomat, Elena Rodriguez. She spent 3 months in negotiations, offering alternative solutions, technology transfers, trade agreements, cultural exchanges. The ZIL leadership rejected everything. They wanted human slaves, and they had the legal and military power to take them. The hologram showed conference rooms full of lizard-like ZIL officials laughing at human proposals. Elena Rodriguez sat across from them, professional and patient, day after day. On the final day of negotiations, the ZIL Supreme Trade Minister made his position clear. He said the humans would work ZIL farms forever. Their children would be ZIL property. And any resistance would be met with military force. He asked Elena if she had any final words. And she said she was getting annoyed? Exactly. Those exact words. Supreme Minister, I have tried every peaceful option. You have rejected all reasonable offers. Now, I am getting annoyed. The display shifted to show Elena Rodriguez sitting alone in her hotel room that night, working on a portable computer. She did not look angry or upset. She looked focused. What could one human diplomat do against an entire trade empire? Computer? Show the economic breakdown of the hegemony of ZIL, starting 48 hours after Elena Rodriguez began working. Thixal watched in fascination as economic charts appeared around them. Trade routes, banking systems, corporate structures, and government finances, all displayed in beautiful, complex detail. Elena spent the next week filing paperwork. Just paperwork. She found that the hegemony's entire economy was built on a web of trade agreements, tax laws, and corporate structures that had grown over centuries. Very complex, very fragile, and very dependent on galactic banking systems. Red warning indicators began appearing throughout the economic displays. She discovered that if Corporation A could not pay Corporation B, then Corporation B could not pay the government taxes, which meant the government could not pay Corporation C, which meant Corporation C would have to sell assets to Corporation D, which would trigger a clause in their agreement with the Galactic Banking Consortium. I do not understand. Elena found every loophole, every legal weakness, every financial dependency in their entire system. Then she very carefully, completely legally, pushed on exactly the right pressure points to make it all collapse at once. The display showed the economic meltdown in real time. Banks failed. Trade routes shut down. Corporations dissolved overnight. The government found itself unable to pay even basic salaries. In 2 weeks, the hegemony of ZIL went from a major galactic power to a collection of unemployed lizards asking other species for food aid. Again, no violence. No weapons. Just one human who got annoyed and decided to solve a problem. Thixal's skin was now bright yellow with amazement. These cannot be real. Oh, but they are. And there is one more incident you need to see. Computer, display the Keith Moran War Crimes Tribunal, year 2168. Zephai's crystal body grew slightly dimmer as the third display activated. This one showed a red planet covered in what looked like massive laboratory complexes. The Keth Moran were scientists, very advanced, very intelligent, very curious about biology. Unfortunately, their curiosity included experimenting on living beings from other species. The images that appeared made Thixal step backward in horror. Creatures from dozens of worlds, changed and twisted by alien science, kept in cages for study. A human xenobiologist named Dr. James Liu discovered what was happening during a routine research exchange. He tried to report it through proper channels. He filed complaints with the Galactic Ethics Committee. He even attempted to negotiate for the release of the experimental subjects. The Keth Moran refused. They laughed at him. They said their research was too important to stop for the feelings of lesser species. They told Dr. Liu that if he interfered, they would add humans to their list of test subjects. The display showed Dr. Liu in his simple laboratory, surrounded by biological equipment and research data. He looked like any other scientist, quiet, thoughtful, completely harmless. The day after the Keth Moran threat, Dr. Liu sent a message to their High Research Council. He said he had tried diplomatic solutions and scientific cooperation. He said their refusal left him no choice. And then he said it, "Now I am getting annoyed. What did one human scientist do against an entire planet of advanced researchers? Computer, show the biological breakdown of Keth Moran genetic engineering projects, starting 72 hours after Dr. Liu began working. What appeared around them looked like biological warfare, but somehow worse. The Keth Moran had used advanced genetic engineering to create their experimental subjects. Dr. Liu had spent 3 days learning their techniques, understanding their methods, and then improving on them. He turned their own science against them. Every biological weapon they had created, he created a better version. Every genetic modification they had made, he made a superior counter-modification. Every virus they had engineered, he engineered a more effective cure. The displays showed the Keth Moran laboratories shutting down one by one as their own creations broke free of their control. But these were not the twisted, suffering creatures they had made. Dr. Liu had healed them, made them stronger, given them the ability to free others like themselves. In 72 hours, the Keth Moran research empire collapsed. Their test subjects walked free, healthy, and strong. The Keth Moran themselves were left with nothing but empty laboratories and the knowledge that someone else could do their life's work better than they could in less than 3 days. Were they destroyed? No. Like the others, Dr. Liu avoided unnecessary killing. The Keth Moran were relocated to agricultural worlds, where they now grow food for refugee populations. Many of them say it is more satisfying work than their old research. All 3 displays faded, leaving Thixal and HFY alone in the dim archive chamber. The young Korvan's skin had shifted through several colors during the presentations, finally settling on a pale blue that indicated deep thought mixed with concern. "Now you understand," HFY said softly. 3 times, someone pushed a human past patience. 3 times, the result was the complete reorganization of galactic society. Not through war, not through violence, but through problem-solving so thorough that the original problems simply ceased to exist. And this is why everyone acts so carefully around Dr. Chen. Humans prefer peace. They like cooperation and trade and building things together. But when they get annoyed, they solve problems. And humans consider many things to be problems that the rest of us just accept as normal. Thixal thought about this for a long moment. What if someone tests the rule again? HFY's crystal form chimed softly with something that might have been laughter. "Young one, after 3 demonstrations, I think everyone in the galaxy has learned to be very, very careful about making humans annoyed." As they left the archive chamber, Thixal found himself thinking about Dr. Chen sitting calmly in the council chambers, reading her reports and organizing her papers. She still looked harmless, but now he knew better. 3 days after his lesson in the archives, Thixal found himself watching Dr. Sarah Chen with new eyes. She sat in her usual spot in the council chamber. But now he noticed things he had missed before. The way other delegates checked her expression before speaking. How conversations grew quieter when she walked past. The careful distance everyone maintained. Today felt different, though. There was tension in the air that even the ventilation systems could not clear away. Emergency session alarms had brought everyone to the chamber early, and the topic was one that had been growing worse for months. The situation in the Kepler 442 system has reached critical levels, announced Council Speaker Mordun, his forearms gesturing at the large displays showing devastated worlds. The Drakon Confederation continues to ignore all diplomatic protests regarding their strip mining operations. The displays showed what had once been beautiful worlds. Kepler 442b had been covered in vast crystal forests, where the Thylaxi people built their cities in harmony with nature. Now, it was a scarred wasteland of open pits and toxic runoff. Kepler 442c had hosted the underwater civilizations of the Merkala, their coral cities stretching across ocean floors. The waters were now acid, the reefs dead and broken. Thixal felt sick looking at the images. 3 entire species had been driven from their homeworlds in the past year. The Drakon claimed they needed the rare minerals to power their growing industrial empire. They had the military strength to take what they wanted, and they seemed to enjoy proving it. Dr. Chen, Speaker Mordun said, you have been coordinating the humanitarian response. Please update the Council on current efforts. Dr. Chen stood slowly, her datapad in hand. Thixal noticed that several older delegates immediately became more alert, though she had not even spoken yet. Thank you, Speaker, she began in her calm, professional voice. Human relief organizations have established temporary settlements for 37,000 Thylaxi refugees on Proxima Colony. The Mercala survivors have been relocated to the underwater cities of Aquatica Prime, though they continue to grieve for their ancestral reefs. She tapped her datapad, bringing up charts and graphs. We have provided medical aid, food, shelter, and psychological support. However, these are temporary measures. The real solution must address the root cause, the Drakon Confederation's illegal occupation and destruction of sovereign worlds. Illegal? Interrupted a harsh voice from the Drakon section. Prime General Vex Tar stood up, his reptilian features set in what might have been a sneer. His scales were a deep red that suggested barely controlled aggression. We claimed those systems through right of conquest. Our fleets are stronger. Our weapons are better. Our need is greater. This is how the galaxy has always worked. Dr. Chen did not look angry at the interruption. She simply nodded slightly and continued. General Vex Tar, I have spent the last 6 weeks reviewing galactic law regarding territorial claims and resource rights. Under the Treaty of Centauri Prime, ratified by 212 species including your own, conquest alone does not establish legal ownership. The original inhabitants maintain sovereign rights unless they formally surrender those rights through proper diplomatic channels. Treaties are words on computers, Vex Tar growled. My fleets are real. My mining equipment is real. The minerals flowing to Drakon worlds are real. Indeed they are, Dr. Chen agreed. Which is why I have prepared several alternative proposals that might address your Confederation's resource needs while respecting the rights of displaced populations. She activated a new display showing trade routes, mining surveys, and economic projections. Human geological surveys have identified 47 uninhabited systems with similar mineral compositions. We are prepared to share this data freely, along with advanced extraction technologies that could increase your yields by 30%. Thixal watched Vex Tar's reaction. The general's red scales darkened almost to black. A Drakon sign of anger. You offer us scraps when we already hold the best systems in that sector, Vex Tar said. Why should we abandon productive operations for unknown possibilities? Because, Dr. Chen replied calmly, continued operations in occupied territory will eventually result in intervention by the Galactic Defense Force. Economic sanctions are already being discussed by several major trading partners. It would be better for everyone if we could find a mutually beneficial solution now. Speaker Mordun leaned forward in his chair. Dr. Chen raises valid points. General Vex Tar, surely the Drakon Confederation would prefer profitable cooperation to costly conflict, but Vex Tar was no longer listening to reason. His aggressive posture and darkening scales suggested he was working himself up to something dramatic. The Drakon Confederation does not need permission to take what we require, he declared. We do not need alternative sites when we already control the best ones. And we certainly do not need advice from a species that has been in space for barely 50 years. He turned to face Dr. Chen directly, his voice growing louder. Humans think they are so clever with your surveys and your treaties and your peaceful solutions. But you are weak. You have small fleets and tiny populations. You solve problems by talking instead of fighting, which makes you useless when real power is needed. Around the chamber, Thixal noticed that experienced delegates were becoming very still. Ambassador Zephi had stopped moving entirely, his crystal form frozen like a statue. Several species representatives were quietly gathering their materials as if preparing to leave. Dr. Chen remained standing calmly, but Thixal could see small changes. Her grip on the datapad had tightened slightly. Her breathing was a bit slower and deeper than normal. Her expression was still professional, but something behind her eyes had shifted. "General," she said in the same even tone, "I understand that change can be difficult. Moving established operations requires investment and planning. If resource concerns are the primary issue, perhaps we could discuss transition assistance. Human industrial corporations could provide equipment loans, technical expertise, even temporary personnel to help establish new mining sites." "More talk," Vextar snarled. "More empty promises. You offer us help we do not need to solve problems we do not have." He spread his arms wide, addressing the entire chamber. "Look at this human. She thinks words and papers will stop our fleets. She thinks economic charts will protect refugee camps." He turned back to Dr. Chen with something that was definitely a sneer. "Your species is soft. You negotiate when you should fight. You offer compromise when you should demand submission. This is why humans will never be important in galactic affairs. You do not understand that strength is the only thing that matters." The chamber had grown very quiet. Thixal realized he could hear the station's life support systems humming in the background, something that was usually masked by conversation and movement. Dr. Chen set her datapad down on the podium with extreme care. She took off her glasses and cleaned them methodically with a small cloth from her pocket. When she put them back on, she looked directly at General Vextar. "General," she said in a voice that somehow managed to be both perfectly calm and completely different from before, "I have spent 6 weeks trying to find a peaceful solution to this crisis. I have prepared detailed surveys of alternative resources. I have organized humanitarian aid for displaced populations. I have offered technological assistance, economic cooperation, and diplomatic mediation." She paused, and in that pause, Thixal heard something that sounded like a distant earthquake. It took him a moment to realize it was the sound of several hundred delegates holding their breath at exactly the same time. "You have rejected every peaceful option," Dr. Chen continued. "You have dismissed every reasonable compromise. You have shown contempt for galactic law, disregard for the suffering of displaced populations, and complete unwillingness to consider any solution except continued aggression." Around the chamber, delegates who had been sitting quietly were now standing and moving toward the exits. Not quickly, that would be rude, but with the steady determination of people who had urgent business elsewhere. Vextar seemed oblivious to the changing atmosphere. Finally, the human shows some emotion. "Are you angry, little diplomat? Are you going to file a complaint? Send us a strongly worded message?" Dr. Chen's hand rested on the podium. Her knuckles were white where she gripped the edge. When she spoke again, her voice carried clearly through the chamber, despite being barely above a whisper. "General Vextar, I have tried every peaceful approach I can think of. You have made it clear that diplomacy, cooperation, and mutual benefit mean nothing to you. You have shown that you will only respect force, and you believe humans are too weak to provide it." The emergency lights in the chamber began flashing softly, station security protocols activating automatically. Most of the older delegates had already left. Speaker Mordoon was gathering his materials with practiced efficiency. "Now," Dr. Chen said, her voice still perfectly calm and professional, "I am getting annoyed." The phrase echoed in the nearly empty chamber. General Vextar looked around in confusion, apparently just noticing that most of his audience had departed. "Where is everyone going?" But Thixal stayed in his seat, transfixed. He watched as Dr. Chen pulled out her datapad and began typing with calm, methodical precision. She was not accessing weapon systems or calling military fleets. She was not even raising her voice or making threats. She was just working. Somehow, that was the most terrifying thing he had ever seen. Ambassador HFY appeared beside Thixal's chair, moving faster than crystal beings were supposed to be able to move. "Young one," he said urgently, "we need to leave. Now." "But I want to see what happens," Thixal protested. "Trust me," HFY said, already pulling him toward the exit. "You do not want to be here for this. No one does." As they reached the chamber doors, Thixal looked back one last time. Dr. Chen was still standing at the podium, typing calmly on her datapad. General Vextar remained in his seat, apparently too confused or stubborn to recognize the danger. The chamber doors sealed behind them with a soft hiss. Outside in the corridor, dozens of delegates were moving quickly but quietly toward their ships and transport areas. No one was running. That would cause panic. But everyone was definitely leaving the station as fast as dignity would allow. "Where are they all going?" Tixal asked. "Anywhere else," HFY replied. "When a human says they are getting annoyed, smart beings go very, very far away. But Dr. Chen is just one person." "Yes," the Crystal Ambassador said grimly. "One person with a data pad and the patience to use it properly." "Do you remember what I told you about human problem solving?" Tixal nodded slowly. "General Vex Tar just became a problem that needs solving." The observation deck of Nexus Prime Station had never been so empty during a council session. Tixal pressed his face against the reinforced viewing windows, watching ships from dozens of species departing at unusual speeds. Below them, the main council chamber remained sealed, its emergency protocols still active. "How long has it been?" he asked Ambassador HFY, who stood nearby like a crystal statue. 4 hours, the Veltari replied. Station security estimates another 2 hours before the chamber systems reset to normal operation. And Dr. Chen is still in there? Along with General Vex Tar. Yes, though I suspect the general is beginning to understand his situation by now. Through the transparent walls, they could see into the chamber. Dr. Chen remained at the podium, her datapad connected to the chamber's main computer system. She had not moved from that spot since declaring her annoyance. She simply stood there, typing with calm precision, occasionally pausing to read something on the large displays that surrounded her. General Vex Tar, on the other hand, had gone through several stages of reaction. First confusion as the chamber emptied, then anger when he realized he was being ignored, then attempts to contact his fleet, followed by growing frustration when those communications were somehow delayed or misdirected. Now he sat, slumped in his chair, his red scales having faded to a dull brown that indicated deep concern among his species. Every few minutes, he would try to say something to Dr. Chen, but she continued working as if he were not there. "What is she actually doing?" Tixal asked. "Problem solving," HFY answered. "The problem is a military confederation that uses force instead of law, destroys inhabited worlds for profit, and refuses all peaceful solutions. So she is solving that problem. But how? Watch the displays." Tixal focused on the holographic screens that surrounded Dr. Chen. At first, they seemed to show random information. Legal documents, trade records, star charts, communication logs. But gradually, patterns began to emerge. One display showed the organizational structure of the Drakon Confederation. Military hierarchy, government officials, corporate leaders, all connected by lines showing relationships and dependencies. As Dr. Chen worked, more connections appeared, creating a web of power that stretched across multiple star systems. Another display tracked financial flows, where the Drakon got their funding, how they paid for their fleets, which corporations supplied their equipment. The data went back years, showing every transaction, every contract, every economic relationship that kept their war machine running. A third screen collected communication records. Not classified military communications. Those would be encrypted and protected. But shipping manifests, customs declarations, maintenance schedules, supply requests, and thousands of other routine messages that military organizations needed to function. She is mapping their entire operation, Tixal realized. More than that, HFY said. She is finding every weakness, every illegal shortcut, every corner they cut to build their empire. Humans have this peculiar talent for discovering that most criminal organizations are surprisingly fragile once you understand how they actually work. On the displays, red warning indicators began appearing throughout the Drakon power structure. Financial irregularities, legal violations, safety violations, environmental crimes, tax evasion, fraud, embezzlement. Dozens of different problems that had been hidden beneath the Confederation's military success. "Computer." "Doctor," Chen said in her calm professional voice. "Cross-reference Drakon military procurement records, with galactic arms trafficking regulations. New information flowed across the screens. The Drakon had been buying weapons from illegal manufacturers, selling captured technology on black markets, and using slave labor to build their ships. Every transaction was documented in their own computers, hidden but not deleted. General Vextar finally stood up, his scales now a pale yellow that indicated fear. "What are you doing to our systems?" Dr. Chen glanced at him briefly. "I am not accessing your systems, General. I am accessing public records, trade databases, legal filings, and communication logs from non-classified sources. Everything I am using is available to any citizen of the galactic community who takes the time to look for it." "That is impossible." "Our security?" "Your security protects military secrets and tactical information," she interrupted. "It does not protect the thousands of routine business transactions, legal filings, and public communications that your organization generates every day. No one can hide that much information perfectly, especially when they never expected anyone to look for patterns." She turned back to her work, typing steadily. New displays appeared, showing the personal records of Drakon leadership, not secret information, just public records that no one had ever bothered to collect in one place before. Computer. Analyze personal financial records for all Drakon flag officers. Cross-referenced with Confederation spending and income reports. The results made even Thixol gasp. Nearly every high-ranking Drakon officer was stealing from their own military. Equipment that was supposed to go to fleets was being sold privately. Funds meant for ship maintenance were disappearing into personal accounts. The Confederation's leadership was robbing their own empire blind. "You cannot prove any of this," Vextar protested, but his voice lacked conviction. "I do not need to prove anything, Doctor," Chen replied calmly. "I just need to file the appropriate reports with the appropriate agencies. Computer, prepare legal documentation packages for submission to the Galactic Trade Commission, the Interspecies Banking Consortium, the Military Ethics Board, and the War Crimes Tribunal." "Wait," Vextar said quickly. "Let us discuss this. Perhaps we can reach some accommodation." "The time for discussion was 6 weeks ago, General. You made it very clear that you prefer force over negotiation. So, I am giving you exactly what you asked for." Her fingers moved across the datapad with mechanical precision. Legal forms, evidence packages, witness statements, financial records. Everything needed to completely dismantle a criminal organization was being assembled with bureaucratic perfection. "Computer, file criminal conspiracy charges against the following individuals." She began reading a list of names that included every major Drakon leader. "Submit evidence to the War Crimes Tribunal for the following atrocities." Another list, this one documenting years of attacks on civilian populations. "Freeze the following assets pending investigation of money laundering." A third list that included most of the Drakon treasury. General Vextar sat down heavily, his scales now pure white with shock. "You cannot destroy an entire confederation with paperwork." "I am not destroying anything, Doctor," Chen corrected. "I am simply reporting crimes to the appropriate authorities and allowing the legal system to function as designed. Your confederation destroyed itself the moment it decided that laws were optional." She paused in her typing to look at him directly. "Did you think no one was keeping records, General? Did you believe that corruption, war crimes, and theft would remain hidden forever simply because you had bigger guns than your victims? We are a sovereign power. You are criminals with military equipment," she said flatly. "The sovereignty you claim was built on conquest, maintained through terror, and funded by theft. None of that creates legitimate authority under galactic law." New alerts appeared on the displays. Throughout Drakon space, banking systems were automatically freezing accounts flagged for illegal activity. Trade ships were being detained for customs violations. Military contractors were suspending services pending investigation of their contracts. "How?" Vextar whispered. "Automation, Doctor," Chen explained. "Most legal and financial systems are designed to respond automatically when proper evidence is presented through proper channels. I am not forcing anything or breaking any rules. I am simply filing accurate reports and allowing existing systems to process them normally. She returned to her datapad. Computer. Submit planetary environmental damage assessments to the Ecological Protection Agency. Include restoration cost estimates and liability assignments. The environmental crimes alone were staggering. Decades of strip mining, industrial pollution, and ecosystem destruction across dozens of worlds. The cleanup costs would bankrupt most governments. Computer. File piracy charges based on unlawful seizure of commercial vessels in neutral space. Cross-reference with insurance fraud claims for artificially inflated shipping costs in Drakon territory. More charges. More evidence. More automatic responses from financial and legal systems across the galaxy. The Drakon Confederation was not being destroyed by human weapons. It was being dissolved by its own crimes. Please, General Vextar said, his voice barely audible. There must be something we can negotiate. Some accommodation we can reach. Dr. Chen stopped typing and looked at him with something that might have been sympathy. General, 6 weeks ago I would have been happy to negotiate. I offered you alternative mining sites, technological assistance, economic partnerships, and diplomatic mediation. You rejected all of it because you believed strength was the only thing that mattered. She gestured at the displays surrounding them. This is strength, General. Not the ability to destroy, but the ability to build systems so comprehensive and fair that destruction becomes impossible. The galaxy has laws, institutions, and procedures that protect everyone, including the Drakon people, who deserve better leadership than corrupt generals who rob them while starting unnecessary wars. What will happen to us? The Confederation as a criminal organization will cease to exist within 48 hours, she said matter-of-factly. Your fleets will be impounded, your leadership arrested, and your illegal assets seized. However, the Drakon people themselves will be offered membership in the Republic of Free Systems, along with reconstruction aid and legitimate mining rights in surveyed territories. She returned to her work. Your species has impressive industrial capabilities and strong work ethics. Once you are no longer being exploited by criminal leadership, I expect the Drakon will become productive and respected members of the galactic community. General Vextar stared at her in amazement. You are offering us a better future even as you destroy our government? I am not destroying anything, Doctor, Chen repeated patiently. I am solving a problem. The problem was never the Drakon people. It was a criminal organization that happened to be led by Drakon. Now that the organization is being properly prosecuted, the people can build something better. The chamber's communication system chimed softly. Dr. Chen, this is Station Control. We are receiving surrender requests from 47 Drakon fleet commanders who wish to cooperate with galactic authorities. Thank you, Control. Please forward their requests to the appropriate military tribunals. Commanders who cooperate fully in exposing corruption and war crimes should be eligible for reduced sentences and early parole. She looked back at Vextar. Your subordinates are not stupid, General. They can see what is happening to your organization's finances and legal status. Most of them would prefer to help rebuild, rather than go down with a sinking ship. And me? You will be arrested, tried, and almost certainly convicted of numerous war crimes, Dr. Chen said simply. However, if you choose to cooperate with investigators and help identify other criminal organizations operating in this sector, you might spend your sentence doing something useful instead of sitting in a cell. She returned to her datapad one final time. Computer, submit final report to the Galactic Security Council. Recommend immediate humanitarian aid for Drakon populations and expedited processing of Republic membership applications. The displays around them went dark as her work finished. In 6 hours, Dr. Chen had filed over 3,000 legal documents, submitted evidence of more than 500 crimes, and triggered automatic responses from dozens of legal and financial institutions across the galaxy. The Drakon Confederation was finished. How? General Vextar asked again, his voice full of wonder and fear. Dr. Chen packed up her datapad and straightened her uniform. You made the mistake of thinking that being strong meant being able to break things, General. But real strength means being able to build things, including legal systems so fair and comprehensive that criminal organizations cannot survive contact with them. She walked toward the chamber exit, pausing beside his chair. The galaxy is not a jungle where the strongest predator rules, General. It is a garden that grows better when everyone tends it together. The Drakon people will learn that lesson, even if their leaders did not. The chamber doors opened, and Dr. Chen walked out calmly, as if she had just finished a routine committee meeting instead of dismantling an entire military empire. Behind her, General Vextar sat alone in the empty chamber, surrounded by the ruins of everything he had thought was powerful. Outside, Tixal turned to Ambassador Zephi with new understanding. "Now I know why everyone follows the rule," he said quietly. "Indeed," the crystal being replied. "Humans solve problems very, very thoroughly." 3 days later, the main council chamber of Nexus Prime Station buzzed with activity once again. Ships from across the galaxy had returned to continue normal diplomatic business, though conversations were quieter than usual, and everyone kept glancing toward the human delegation area. Dr. Sarah Chen sat in her customary seat, reviewing agricultural reports from the Kepler 442 system on her datapad. She looked exactly as she had before, calm, professional, completely ordinary. The only sign that anything unusual had happened was the slightly wider space that other delegates maintained around her. Tixal watched her from across the chamber, still trying to understand what he had witnessed. 3 days ago, the Drakon Confederation had been a major military power, controlling 47 star systems. Today, it no longer existed. "The transformation has been remarkable," Ambassador Zephi said, settling his crystal form beside the young Corvin. "Faster than anyone expected." "What exactly happened after Dr. Chen finished her work?" "Bureaucracy," the Veltari replied with what sounded like satisfaction. "Beautiful, efficient, unstoppable bureaucracy. Once proper documentation was filed with proper authorities, the legal system processed everything automatically. The main display activated, showing the former Drakon territories, where military bases and strip mining operations had existed 3 days ago. There were now humanitarian aid stations and reconstruction teams. The Galactic Banking Consortium froze all Confederation assets within 6 hours, Zephi explained. The War Crimes Tribunal issued arrest warrants within 12 hours. The Environmental Protection Agency filed damage assessments and cleanup orders within 18 hours. By the second day, 43 of 47 Drakon fleet commanders had formally surrendered and agreed to cooperate with investigations. And General Vextar? Arrested, as Dr. Chen predicted, currently in protective custody, while he provides information about other criminal organizations in the Outer Rim. Apparently, the Confederation was connected to quite a few illegal operations that law enforcement had been trying to locate for years. The display showed new images from the liberated worlds. Thylaxi refugees were already returning to their home system, working alongside human engineers to restore their crystal forests. Merkala survivors supervised the careful cleaning of their poisoned oceans, using technology donated by 3 different species. "How are the Drakon people handling all this?" "Better than expected," Zephi said. "Most of them knew their government was corrupt, but they had been powerless to change it. Now that the criminals are gone, they are free to build something better." A new display showed Drakon civilians working in temporary settlements while their worlds were cleaned up. Human aid workers moved among them, providing food and medical care. Children from both species played together, apparently unconcerned about the political upheaval around them. "The Republic of Free Systems has already approved preliminary membership for 14 Drakon worlds," Zephi continued. "Full membership should follow within a year, once they establish legitimate governments and complete environmental restoration programs." Council Speaker Mordoon called the session to order, his forearms gesturing for attention. "We are gathered today to discuss the ongoing humanitarian situation in the former Confederation territories. Dr. Chen, would you provide an update on relief efforts?" Dr. Chen stood up smoothly, her datapad ready. As always, other delegates paid careful attention to her every movement. "Thank you, Speaker. I am pleased to report significant progress in all affected systems. Refugee resettlement operations have exceeded projected timelines. with 73% of displaced populations now returned to restored settlements. She activated displays showing reconstruction statistics, clean water systems being installed, atmospheric processors working to clear industrial pollution, native ecosystems beginning to recover. Human agricultural teams have successfully restored soil chemistry on 11 worlds previously damaged by strip mining operations. Crop yields are expected to reach pre-Confederation levels within 2 growing seasons. New images appeared, vast fields of native crops growing in soil that had been poisoned just days before. Human farmers worked alongside Thylaxi restoration specialists and Drakon agricultural workers, all cooperating to heal the damaged worlds. Medical teams report that health impacts from industrial pollution are responding well to treatment. No long-term genetic damage has been detected in any affected populations. The displays showed field hospitals where human doctors worked with medical specialists from a dozen species, treating everything from respiratory problems to malnutrition among refugee populations. Perhaps most encouraging, Dr. Chen continued, former Confederation military personnel have been volunteering in large numbers for reconstruction efforts. Many pilots and engineers are using their skills to help restore the same worlds they were previously ordered to destroy. Tixal felt his skin ripple with surprise. The same people who were strip mining planets are now helping fix them? Apparently so, Zephi whispered back. It seems most Drakon military personnel were not enthusiastic supporters of their government's policies. They were simply following orders because they saw no alternative. On the displays, former Drakon soldiers worked alongside their former enemies, clearing debris and replanting forests. Some were operating the same heavy equipment they had used for mining, but now using it to build homes and schools instead of destroying ecosystems. Computer, Dr. Chen said, display economic projections for the transition regions. New charts appeared showing trade routes, industrial output, and economic growth. The numbers were impressive. Removing the Confederation's corruption and illegal taxation had actually increased prosperity throughout the sector. Free trade agreements between liberated worlds and neighboring systems have increased commerce by 37% in 3 days, Dr. Chen reported. Legitimate mining operations, using proper environmental controls, are projected to produce more valuable minerals than the Confederation's strip mining ever did, while actually creating jobs for local populations instead of displacing them. Question, called a voice from the chamber floor. Delegate Korthan of the Spiral Alliance stood up, his insectoid features clicking with curiosity. Dr. Chen, you have accomplished in 3 days what military forces could not accomplish in years. Yet you used no weapons, commanded no fleets, and caused no military casualties. How is such a thing possible? Dr. Chen paused, considering the question carefully. Delegate Korthan, I think there is a common misconception about what makes an organization powerful. Military strength, economic resources, and political authority are certainly important, but they are only as strong as the systems that support them. She gestured at the displays around them. The Drakon Confederation appeared powerful because it had large fleets and controlled valuable resources. But its power was built on crime, corruption, and fear. When those foundations were exposed to proper legal scrutiny, the entire structure collapsed. But how did you know where to look for evidence of these crimes? I did not need to look for evidence, Dr. Chen replied simply. Criminal organizations create evidence automatically. Every illegal transaction, every corrupt decision, every abuse of power generates records. The evidence was already there, waiting for someone to collect it and present it properly. She turned to address the full chamber. This is why humans prefer legal systems over military solutions. Laws and institutions, properly designed, make crime unprofitable and corruption unstable. Violence can destroy things quickly, but only justice can build things that last. Another delegate spoke up. Dr. Chen, there are rumors that you could have solved this crisis weeks ago, but chose to try diplomatic solutions first. Is this true? Dr. Chen was quiet for a moment. It is true that the evidence of Confederation crimes was available from the beginning. However, I hoped that General Vextar and his leadership might choose cooperation over confrontation. Peaceful solutions are always preferable to legal ones, even when legal solutions are available. And if they had agreed to your diplomatic proposals, then the Confederation could have transitioned to legitimate operations gradually, with minimal disruption to their people and neighboring systems. The criminal leadership could have retired quietly, the military could have been retrained for peaceful purposes, and everyone would have been better off. Tixal thought about this. Dr. Chen could have destroyed the Confederation immediately, but she had spent weeks trying to find a solution that would hurt fewer people. Only when those efforts were rejected did she resort to legal warfare. So you gave them every chance to avoid this outcome? Speaker Mordun asked. I gave them every chance I could think of, Dr. Chen confirmed. Some problems can only be solved one way, but I always try other approaches first. The session continued with routine reports about reconstruction progress, trade agreements, and refugee assistance. Normal diplomatic business, conducted by beings who were still processing the implications of what they had witnessed. As the meeting ended, Tixal approached Ambassador Zephi with a question that had been bothering him. The rule about humans getting annoyed, he said quietly. It is not really about anger, is it? What do you think it is about? The crystal being asked in return. Problem solving. When humans say they are getting annoyed, they mean they have exhausted peaceful options and are about to solve the problem permanently. Very good, young one, you are learning. But why does everyone call it the rule instead of just explaining what it means? Zephi's crystalline features seemed to smile. Because fear is simpler than understanding. It is easier to tell people, do not make humans annoyed, than to explain that human civilization is designed to make criminal behavior impossible to sustain. Oh? They watched Dr. Chen gathering her materials and preparing to leave. She nodded politely to other delegates as she passed, just as she always did. Several representatives nodded back, but maintained their careful distance. Will people always be afraid of her now? Tixal asked. Not afraid, Zephi corrected. Respectful. There is a difference. Dr. Chen just demonstrated that law and justice, properly applied, are more powerful than fleets and armies. That is not something to fear. It is something to admire, and to be very careful not to test. Indeed, as they left the chamber, Tixal found himself thinking about the message he needed to send to his homeworld's diplomatic corps. The young Corvan had arrived at Nexus Prime thinking he understood galactic politics. Military power, economic leverage, political alliances, the traditional tools of interstellar relations. Now he knew there was something far more powerful. The quiet human sitting in the council chamber, reading agricultural reports and organizing refugee relief efforts with the same calm efficiency she had used to dismantle a criminal empire. That evening, Tixal sent his report to the Corvan Diplomatic Service. Priority message to all first contact teams. Human interaction protocols require immediate update. When humans express annoyance, they are not displaying emotion. They are announcing their intention to solve problems permanently. Recommend all diplomatic personnel be briefed on human problem-solving capabilities before any assignments involving human populations. Additional note: human solutions tend to leave everyone better off than before, including former enemies. This is somehow more intimidating than simple military conquest. Personal recommendation: never, under any circumstances, test the rule. The humans are not dangerous because they want to hurt people. They are dangerous because they are very, very good at fixing things that are broken. Trust me on this. Outside his quarters, through the massive windows of Nexus Prime Station, hundreds of ships moved through space in peaceful trade. The galaxy continued its ancient dance of commerce and diplomacy. But now, with the quiet confidence that came from knowing the rules were enforced by beings who understood the difference between strength and violence. In the council chamber, Dr. Sarah Chen finished reviewing her reports and prepared to return to her own quarters. Tomorrow there would be more refugee settlements to organize, more agricultural programs to coordinate, more peaceful solutions to find for the galaxy's problems. It was good work, the kind of work that humans did best, and everyone in the galaxy would make very sure she never had to get annoyed about it again.